because I'm trying to avoid, like when I teach this in class, it's very intense and because I'm trying to get the historical facts correct, right? So, I'm not going to do that here because all of you people think nice, happy thoughts about me. I don't want you to think bad thoughts about me later. But I am a crusader for truth and accuracy and historical preservation of jazz. So, the blues is a broad term that's used to describe a bunch of different things. Out of that comes gospel music, comes rock and roll, comes R&B, comes jazz. Then jazz has so many subgenres. You have swing era jazz, you have bebop jazz, you have straight ahead jazz, you have fusion jazz, you have punk rock jazz, you have R&B, neo soul jazz, all these different stuff. So we're going to focus on the importance of the blues. The blues is an art form that the city of New Orleans took the blues and really expanded. Go on! But before it got to New Orleans, the geography, before it got to New Orleans, it was somewhere else.
Where was it? Where?
Okay.
Lunch and learn.
Right.
Learn.
So we have to talk about where the blues came from. So now we've got to go all the way back to the plantation. So, slaves, you come from Africa, you're speaking another language, a myriad of languages. Your language is taken away from you because the master can't understand what you're saying. And you could be communicating and probably revolt. So he takes your language, he reprograms you, takes your language, and then you can't speak. So the only way in Africa that we communicate without using language is music. We use rhythm. If you've ever been to a drum circle with people from Nigeria, they don't talk. There's a leader of the group, there's a circle of people, somebody standing in the center who's dancing. Dancing is the communication, the symbology of what the music is conveying. Since these people were worshiping other gods, pantheists, they were worshiping other gods. They had different symbols for different gods, right? Rhythm, when the rhythm changes, the dance changes. That's why when any of y'all go to a party and somebody puts on the wrong beat,
You sit down.
you sit down. because that's how important rhythm and dance are connected. So, the slaves can't talk, or if they are speaking, they're speaking broken English, right? So we can stop talking and we come up with an art form, a musical art form to communicate. We call these work songs, right? Working on the railroad, you're working on in the plantation, you start humming a melody. You're not even singing words at this point. Now it's just a melody. That melody, somebody else catches. Now we've created community. Now we're in dialogue and we're in understanding without saying words. Now when we start adding words, we're using words that the master would hear as broken English. These are just people who are illiterate trying to speak English, but really we're communicating. The evidence of that is when we say things like, we spell it W-A-D-E, but it's really W-A-I-T, wade in the water, which you really said wait in the water, right? Which is what we use in the Underground Railroad to communicate to somebody. Children, perhaps, in the water, wait in the water till the water's troubled, which means it's time to move. So wade in the water, God's going to trouble the water. Now we sing this at baptism, right? It took on a new meaning, but this is a mode of communication. So then now we've learned that the blues is about community, communication, and bringing the whole group together. The reason why I say New Orleans mastered this, because New Orleans hid this in music, food, and language. Right? You meet somebody from New Orleans, you're not going to hear the same. You're not going to hear it's in the gumbo, brother. Gumbo is the best one. Gumbo is like the biggest allegory because it's a melting pot. Now, they hear this in the music. That's why New Orleans is the only place in the United States of America where you could go see, you could go to the Preservation Hall, you could go see the Dirty Dozen, or you could go walk along the streets of Bourbon Street and see a 13-year-old or grown man playing, and the same thing you heard at the hall, you hear on the street. With the same level of depth, which is why when I finished my studies in Houston, I turned my studies to New Orleans. Because I felt the same rhythm that they were playing in Houston, but they played it deeper and it had more understanding and more history behind it. This is why New Orleans is a place that everybody needs to visit. And for nothing else to understand it, they carry this in their DNA. Right? It's the only city in the country where the African American is the majority, not the minority. Musicians are respected as not as, in this town, in the Metroplex, we're treated like help. In New Orleans, you're treated like royalty. If your last name is Marcellus, in New Orleans, you're royalty. If it's Toussaint, it's royalty. Royalty. Right? In Texas, my last name is Hobdy. Who? Or if they know him.
That's not accurate.
Oh, I know your brother. He's a preacher, right? Okay. But not because I'm a drummer. But if I lived in New Orleans and I played the drums, and I was Shannon Powell or Herlin Riley or James Black or any of these great New Orleans drummers, I would be considered royalty. So what Wynton Marsalis did is he took this blues concept, he brought it up to New York and put it right there in Lincoln Center. And people don't like it. He's not a favorite in the jazz community. He's considered a purist because he preserves. The blues is a simple concept. It's not a whole lot of chords and harmonic information in it. It's like 5 or 6 chords the whole time. It's the simplicity that makes the music have the depth. And we have all people groups. You Hungarian, you Bulgarian, you Slavic, you British, you African American, you African from the continent, you Jamaican, we all resonate with the blues. We all understand it. Now we get into the theoretical, what it sounds like. We all resonate with the same thing. So that's what the blues is about. It's about community, right? That's lost now. See, jazz is taking on a different direction. We teach individualism. And the church indoctrinated the blues because the church was all about community. So that's why the first stop place for the blues was the church, gospel music. And before it, modern instruments, it was just a broomstick with a string attached to it that you plucked. And you moved the pitch, right? And a tambourine. Okay? So if you're from New Orleans, and a tambourine, right? Sister that sat in that corner with no music and pulled that tambo out and started. We all fell into a worship, right? We didn't know what we was worshiping about. But that's the power of this music, right? And the blues is in gospel music. When we sing hymns, glory, glory, hallelujah, that's the blues. When we sing Wading in the Water, that's the blues. All that's the blues. And we all connect to it. We don't even know this, but even I saw this little man right here. He was singing Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World, just mouthing them words, and I just keyed right in on him. That's how powerful the music is. And I favor New Orleans all the time. People think I'm just like a disciple of Wynton. No, I favor it because that's how I got to the level that I am. I studied that music and the depth of that music, and there's history in it. And before it was American classical music, it was music of the slave song and the field house. That always needs to be represented. When jazz got into academia, that was taken out. That history is gone. So when you teach at UNT, where I got my master's degree, we're not talking about that this music was once rejected. Negro music. Now it's America's classical music, but it was Negro music back then. And it was the devil's music because it was Negro music. Now we embrace it as America's classical music, right? But when Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, when all these people were doing this, they had to come through the back door to play this music. When Miles did it in 1960s, when it was the cool era, when it had evolved into the cool era, Miles made him walk through the back door of Carnegie Hall. He turned his back to Carnegie Hall and played the song with his back to the audience to show them. See, this is when it evolved. Because in 1960s, when hard bop came, and the blues was coming, the gospel and the blues era came back in the hard bop era. Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, Coltrane, and all of these different people, they sent a message. Nah, man, this music came from that field. And that can never leave. So when I used to not like Whitney, or Branford, or Delphio, because of their verbiage, I understand that. You can't take this part. And when you're dealing with music, you have to connect to the culture of the people that created it. So if you do Latin music and you do a tango, or you do a merengue, or you do bachata, they're not going to let you dance their music or play their rhythms, and you don't understand their culture. And you're going to say the words in Spanish correctly, or you're not going to play their music. But that's the same thing with the blues. If we're going to talk about the blues, you're going to respect the culture that created it. And unfortunately, though it was created out of a negative place, it's been birthed into a positive thing, and it's transformed lives. In the church specifically. So that's why I said it gets intense. Now most of my students at Southwestern, predominantly Asian and Korean. So when I said this, I had to take a step back and say, listen, I don't dislike anybody. It's not about a people group. But if you go to Bulgaria and you do Bulgarian music, they're going to make you learn it. If you do Jewish music, you sing the horror, you're not going to sing it in English. You're going to sing it in Hebrew. So why don't we have the same appearance, ideology with our music, with the blues? I carry that in everything. So this tambourine goes with me on every gig, even if I'm on a pop gig. And I'm playing Lady Gaga. I'm going to pull it out and find a way to use it. Right? That's how deep it is. Now, when I play here at church, I tone everything down. It's much too much. And my brother be like, man, you want to embarrass me? When I go out there, if anybody has been to a gig when see me playing, there's no apologetics.
Man, I don't play no gig, man. Play it.
It's unapologetic. So, the blues is about that. Right? And by the way, any people group can play this music. We all connect to this music, right? It's not about black people only playing this music. But anybody who's of another race that comes down to New Orleans embraces everybody. You go to New Orleans, they embrace everybody. But they're going to tell you, we'll embrace you. But you got to respect this history and this culture. See, New Orleans brought class to jazz. Even in the way the brothers dress, the brothers and the sisters dress. That means because classical music was viewed as that music. That's the music that was classic. Jazz was pastime music. But when you saw these brothers stepping out with fine tailored suits and these women dressed to kill, and they looked like class and they played with class, and it brought the music up. Right now it's going back down because the history's gone. When we preserve, that's what the blues is about. Right? And the reinforcement of the church helped the African American battle with slavery and reconciling his soul back to God. And he could do it through music. He could express. Now, the blues can be sad. It can be happy. You know, Ray Charles, when he sang a song, he said, baby, let me hold your hand. You know, that's happy. Or, you know, that's one of them old ones. If you never heard Ray, if you saw the movie, the first gig he had, baby, let me hold your hand. You know what I'm saying? Or it can be sad. Every day I got the blues. Every day I got the blues. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, right? So, that's history. First of all, let me pause. Any questions before I move forward to the next section, which is the theory. Now we're going to start getting the sounds, how stuff sounds. Any questions on the history aspect? Okay.
Excuse me.
Oh!
Can I say something on the history?
Yes, ma'am.
Back in 1920, my dad was a professional trumpet player, playing all over Louisiana, but from New Orleans. And Louis Armstrong heard him, and he came to recruit him and take him up where he was going up. And my mom and dad, they were like this, and they wanted to get married, so he didn't get that chance. But my grandmother, she was so angry because she knew that her son was gifted, and she wanted him to go with Louis Armstrong. But that's back in the 20s, 1920. They were not, my dad was 19.
Oh, that's cool. That's good.
When he was with the Hot 5, Hot 7, he could have blew up. Okay. All right. So let's go over here and talk about how this sounds. Let's talk about, I'm going to give you a little bit of a theory lesson, not a long lesson. I'm not going to go too deep into it. My brother told me to remember your audience. I think y'all a bunch of intellectuals, so I figured y'all could grab it.
I did not tell you. That's less than that.
Okay. So we have a scale. We have scales. All music is the core, the foundation is scales, right? If you're a musician and you don't know how to play, well, I play drums, but my mom forced me to learn melodic percussion, which is a mallet instrument being hammered with a mallet. So my brothers in the summers forced me to learn to play piano. And I say forced, because I was forced. Sit down. Mama said you got to do 30 minutes a day on this piano. So it didn't really matter until I got to my master's degree, and they made me look, I had to write big band charts. And then it was like, oh. Right? So we have a scale. So we have what's called a pentatonic. Everybody say that word. Pentatonic. P-E-N-T-O-N-I-C. Pentatonic. Right? Pent means 5, right? Right? This is a 5 note. Most scales are made of 7 notes. This is made of 5 notes, right? We're going to do this in the key of A flat, since we're going to play this song that we're about to write in the key of A flat. Right? Who knows what that is? That's My Girl. All of that stuff is based on 5 notes. This 5 note thing, you've heard it usually in this key in Asian culture. That's in Asian cultures. So what I'm telling you is this pentatonic scale is relevant in our culture, in Asian culture, in Jewish culture. So this is a scale that unites in African culture, very heavily in African culture. This is a scale that unites all people groups. So this is what the blues is about. I may not know where you're from, and I may not understand your language that you speak, but we can meet on the level right here with this pentatonic scale, right? Any questions before I move forward? I don't want to move too fast. Okay, this is great. This is a good crowd. Usually I have to stop and explain, all right? So again, this is called a pentatonic scale. All right, so then you have a blues scale, right? That's where it gets interesting. We're going to add some notes. Right? You with me? Everybody with me? I need some crowd participation. You with me? Okay? Right? So this is a blues scale. Now we've heard that before many times. For some of y'all, it hit your soul, right? You touched it right there at the bottom of your right? So you move on. Now we got the scale. Now we're going to build harmony. We're going to build a harmonic structure. Form. Let's talk about that word form. Form is the way by which all music is organized. You have a binary form, you have concerto form, you have all these different forms. We have blues form, right? So each form has a certain amount of measures. A measure is how each individual chunk of music is grouped in a measure, right? Now, it's grouped by time signature, 4/4. Anybody ever seen a sheet of music before you seen the 4/4 and over in that level? Well, a C stands for common time, because 4/4 is the most commonly used time signature in all music, right? So it's grouped. You have a certain amount of measures, and then the form repeats, right? Now, what we call that when we play in jazz, that's the head. We call that the head. But we're going to play the form, right? Now, I'm giving y'all this list. So if you're ever on a gig and you hear the cats, man, head, hit the head. You know what I'm saying? I do it all the time. But we got all kinds of signals. We tap this when we go to the top. When we're moving on, and this is the universal signal for
We're done.
We are done.
We are done. No more.
We're about to end this bad boy. You know? But sometimes you may see dudes throwing up numbers. Usually those numbers are signifying to what chord you need to play. That's the 1. That's the 4. That's the 5. You playing the 6. Whatever. I'm just giving y'all insight into, like, if y'all ever look for this next time when y'all see musicians, right? So, a blues form can exist in 2 different types of forms. A 12-bar format or a 16-bar format. Today we're going to work on a 12-bar format, right? And these are the standard chords that are played. So you start with the 1. We're in the key of A flat. The first chord is A flat 7. We sit on that for 4 bars, right? Then we move to the 4th scale degree, which is D flat. Let me go back to A flat 7. For 2 bars. Then we move to the 5. Then we go back to then back home. And we going back home. Right? So, well, mostly it makes sense when you hear something like this. So we're going to go, this is pulse. Now we take pulse, and then we use this as our guide for how the beat is going to go. 1, 2, and we're going to accent 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. All right? All right, so now we're going to count. I need somebody to help me count. My brother can help me count. 12 bars.
1, 2.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to give you a count out. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and we're at the top, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8,
12-bar blues.
Yeah, 12-bar blues. Everybody clap for that. All right? Now you got to talk about how to write a song. Lyrics. Now, when you write a song, you can use a lot of lyrics. Or you can just use one word. Right? Throughout the whole song. You can say, every day I got the blues. And it'll work. I promise you. You can say, every day I got the blues. You keep this state the whole time. You ain't got to say nothing else.
Can you show us?
No, he's funny. Right? So you can stick on one word. Now, we're supposed to write a song. Well, y'all supposed to write a song. I'm supposed to be assisting. Right? You can talk about grace. You can talk about building a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. Cooperation with God's grace. You can do all of those things. You can turn this into a song. Now just think. You got to think about pulse and form. A singer is different than a horn player or a drummer. My role is to give clear rhythm as a drummer. That's my seat. A singer has the luxury to say, I can be really on with the rhythm, or I can do what we call back phrasing. I can get behind the band and catch up. And it's a nuance. Or they can be really in front. Right? So we call that front phrasing, back phrasing. Back phrasing is when you hear a singer carrying on that phrase that she's singing while the chords are moving. Right? And it'll work if the musicians stay in their place. See? So music is all about structure and order. And when people start overlapping and getting in the singer's way, it don't work. So if a singer's up there singing, here's the thing. Now here's the lesson. She's leading, but she's also, he or she is leading, but submitting at the same time. That's a life lesson, right? And the band is doing the same thing. They're submitting at first, then taking over. Sometimes the singer will wait to let the keyboardist move forward so he or she can catch up. It's a partnership. Just in case y'all want to join the choir, which I highly recommend.
Well done.
So I don't know what y'all plan to write about today.
I'm gonna write down whatever they.
Okay, topics. Okay, so y'all just let's see. I'm gonna steal my Tatiana, her little method that she uses. Y'all just write about.
Oh, wow.
She says like 6 topics. Who went to SCAT and saw her do that one time?
Oh, we did, yeah.
She does like 6 topics. You like?
Oh, you gonna bring it together? People pick.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that. I'm gonna need. I'm gonna need y'all help. So y'all can write about. Y'all call out different things that y'all want to talk about in the song.
Love.